Hello, everyone. Welcome on this Friday evening. We have a special guest with us. We have Andre from Astrology Alert. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Pleasure.
Um, and I always like to just, give my guests a little chance to promote themselves. I saw that you do consultations and that you have a website, correct?
I do, yeah, and I mostly run it out of my YouTube channel. So if you go to the
Hmm.
About section of the channel, it shows there how to get in touch with me and where the website is and everything. But just about everything I've been doing for the last 2 years is videos on my YouTube channel, on a regular
Right.
basis. Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, which is busy work, right? We've we've had so much to cover in these last 2 years.
Yeah. I
Oh
keep
my
trying
goodness.
to shift directions, but the politics is just it's insane because you one thing
It's
happens and then a
overwhelming.
day later, sometimes I'm in the middle of one thing and I'm seeing the next thing already. So yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
absolutely.
So we have
Yeah.
quite a few people here. So let me just say hi to Sharon, Gertrude, Valerie, Dave, Sandy. Welcome, everybody. So I thought we would start off with talking about these January 6th hearings. Pretty intense.
Hmm.
They start up again on Tuesday.
Hmm.
So I was wondering, when everything is said and done, how do you think this is going to turn out for Trump?
Not well. Not well at
Right?
all. Not not well. I mean, the man may seem like Houdini in the way
Hmm.
he escapes justice, but keep in mind that if you're looking at his period in the big limelight, because he's always been pretty famous, but since
Hmm.
2015, he's had Republican protection for almost all of that time because
Yes.
while he was in office, he's pretty much untouchable. Our system is designed to protect the president, and this GOP is especially intent on allowing pretty much anything. So really, he's only been under the gun since he was, thrown out of office. And, you've seen things progressing. They don't progress as fast as people like, but
Right.
you're seeing what's happening. I mean, you tell me, would you want to be in his shoes, legally speaking, based on what has been shown? I don't know.
Absolutely not.
No. It's, so and you have to realize that there are pressures going in both directions because to those who say, Merrick Garland is afraid to charge him, he's going to be afraid to not charge him too. because because
Exactly.
because if there are 75 million that don't want him to charge him, there are 81 million that do. So he's between a rock and a hard place.
It's true. And I think too with Merrick Garland, he's not a very flashy person, but I think
Mhm.
he very quietly does what he needs to do behind the scenes without showing his cards, without letting us know what's going on. But I think he actually is probably more proactive than what people get because the cards always tell me he's doing what needs to be done. He's just not a very loud, vivacious person. And so I think we just need him to just do his thing. And like you said, it's going to take time. This is a legal issue. They have the money to delay things. That's what we've been seeing. But now too, it's also in prime time. And I think part of the reason why this is happening is because we still need some people to shift their mindsets.
Mhm.
Some people are still thinking, oh, this wasn't, actually an insurrection. Of course not. It was just a tour. It was just a normal
Yeah,
day.
I know it.
And,
Tour visit.
or they're just picking on Trump. And, but I think by putting it on prime time, it's really forcing people to look at the obvious. And so when I pulled the cards, the first card I got was the moon card, the card of disillusionment, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's what Trump's been trying to do. He doesn't want, for somebody who likes to be in the spotlight, he wants, the sun card, right? He wants, the light to be shining on him. He doesn't want to have that light on him right now. He wants to stay in the dark as much as he can. But
Mhm.
the obstacle is, here's the Six of Cups. And the obstacle is things are not going to go back to the way they used to be. There's some people who want those good old days and they're not coming back. Like he's going to have to face the music.
Mhm.
And he's fighting it. He's trying to not let that happen.
Right.
And I guess, if I guess I don't know. I guess anyone in his position would do that, but I would like to think I would never put myself in that position. But the world is watching. Here's the world card. The world is watching. Everybody's watching. It's not just Americans even. I mean, everybody's watching this to see what happens.
Mhm.
Can an American president try to overthrow the government and win? And just walk away like it's.
Right.
And the world's card is also about one phase is ending. And I think, yeah, one phase has ended in our country. I think we sort of thought that this would never happen. Like this happens in other countries. It doesn't happen here. But there are those, 10 of swords, that there are those people that are betraying Trump, right? I look at Bill Barr. Bill Barr has totally flipped. So this is how he's feeling right now. He's feeling stabbed in the back and like his hands are tied. And we always get this card for him where he is the victim, because he doesn't take responsibility for this. So he's feeling victimized,
Mhm.
which tells me he's not owning what he has done. So even though Trump, I don't ever see him having that big epiphany where he becomes like a more enlightened human being. I've never seen that. And I have looked to see, like, is there going to be a shift with this man? Like, after he goes through all of this, will he have learned lessons? And
No,
overwhelmingly, I always get no,
no,
no.
no, no.
It,
He's fully committed. He's in for life. He's a lifer.
he is. He
Yeah,
is.
yeah. No,
Oh my gosh.
and then the astrology, um, Trump is in a really bad period, obviously, because
Right.
as this thing began, the planets that are in play are really difficult, and there's a build-up now to a crescendo in late July, where even Jupiter, which tends to be the most uh, beneficial planet in most cases, uh,
Hmm.
but in his case, the Jupiter cycle is very negative going into late July, and you can kind of see it building because the committee will be done by early July, and by then there'll likely be more news around what may be coming in terms of something. I mean, people say the
Right.
committee. I've heard things like the committee isn't recommending indictment. Liz Cheney actually cited the two statutes where they can indict him on. She actually listed them. She said
Mm,
U.S. something or other. One is for obstructing an official procedure, and the other one is for defrauding the United States. Those are the statutes he violated. I mean, it's, it's plain English, and
right.
the evidence is there. The thing happening as we move toward late July is very problematic. But it's not like it gets better afterward either. It doesn't get better
Right.
because this guy, as we go into 23, 24, 25, then he has to deal with this Saturn cycle, which I'll often say to people with Saturn, if you've been breaking the law, I know this from watching a whole bunch of crime shows where I would get the times of people or the charts, and it's
Hmm.
always Saturn when you're finally, the police knocks on the door or they find the evidence or you finally reach the accountability point. So, anyways, bottom line with Trump, thumbs down. He's in a jam, and it's very, very hard to get out of this. His
Right.
chart, his chart signals that point in life that happens to a lot of people at a fairly advanced stage where all their karma coalesces on them. And I mean, this guy is asking for it. He's basically a lifelong criminal, has no boundaries at all,
No
just
boundaries.
breaks through everything, breaks the law, without thinking about it, and even brags about, he calls Georgia asking for votes, and he says it was a perfect call. So what do you do with
Yes. Right. Which is delusional, which is why, we got the moon card, the card of
Yes,
disillusionment.
right,
It's so consistent with him.
right,
Um,
exactly.
Thank you, Melissa, for the donation. And I have to say, so we just started this new thing with YouTube where you can do something called a super thanks.
Yes, yes.
And if you donate with the super thanks, you get balloons and hand clapping. I was just talking to my YouTube agent about that. So, and if, for anyone that's new to my channel, whenever someone comes on and you donate, I always share it with my guests. Somebody asked a good question of you, Andre. Linda wants to know, do you think that Trump believes in an afterlife? I mean, I know what
uh,
my answer is.
I think Trump is so mesmerized by the intensity of the moment and a lot of it is competition and vengeance. I think he's
Yes.
motivated by, and that's in his chart, by the way. He's channeling the
Mm,
energy of this planet on the low end, which is basically cutthroat competition. He's always competing
yes.
with someone, trying to take someone down. And if he's been in any way put down, insulted, whatever, the slightest thing, he makes that his mission. So just picture someone whose mind is constantly scheming and churning, that kind of thing. And how much room is there left for the afterlife? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
I never get any spirituality in his
no,
readings or when I go into his energy. I don't think he's a very spiritual person. I don't think he cares about consequences or karma or his own
no.
soul. So, yeah, no, I don't think he really even would think about an afterlife because he's so caught up in these earthly things.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
doesn't
it's a
care.
bit, it's in a way a pity in the sense that he has the spiritual. There's a house in astrology that, like all factors in astrology, have a high and a low end, and he's got
Mhm.
the spiritual house is populated, but people have to realize the spiritual house in astrology, monasteries are there, but so are prisons because it's the place where all the
Uh,
karma coalesces. So this guy doesn't play at all to anything spiritual. His whole life has been how do I get mine, and everything is really pretty illegal. I mean, all the time, the whole time he was in the presidency, all the people around him were upset because he was trying to break laws. He would say, "Well, let's do this," and they'd say, "Well, you
right.
can't do that; it's against the law. Do it anyway. I don't care. I'll pardon you." You know, everything is to
Yes.
charge ahead, and and there are all kinds of stories about prior to the presidency, money laundering and all kinds of stuff that he's done that is highly questionable all the way to illegal. So he's
Right.
playing that particular house to the limit, and the
Mm,
problem with doing that is that you eventually attract counter forces like he's attracted. I mean, it's just society protecting itself. It's that simple, right? So no, and
yeah.
the answer, spirituality, I say zero. I don't know what you
No.
say, but I say zero.
I totally agree, and I've looked at it, I've gone into his energy, I've used the cards, and I've never seen that he really cares much about consequences.
Yeah.
So nothing spiritual, nothing higher, just everything is very 3D. Just wanting money, wanting physical pleasures, those sort of things.
Yeah, and
It
in the astrology, you see how he is like almost like in religious terms, like a satanic manifestation because he finds a way to express all the lowest energies of the planets. Like for instance,
mm,
Neptune is really wired in his chart. Neptune on the high end is a really spiritual planet, but as happens with these archetypes on the low end, you get the liars and gaslighters and cheaters. That's what this man is. I mean, he can't
yes.
speak without lying. He lies at about the rate that he breathes. It's literally like that. Everything that comes out of his mouth is false. Just listen to him, and within seconds he'll say something. He'll say, "That's not true. That's not true. That's not true," and he just
Right.
keeps doing it. So he's committed. I mean, the man he's all in on this. You know,
Which is what I've always gotten too, is
yeah,
like, because I was thinking, where he picked such a tough, you know, a tough life in a lot of ways. I mean, because I wouldn't want to be going through what he's going through, but he manifested it. I was
yeah,
thinking maybe part of the reason why he did it was for the reward at the end, that he would have this great epiphany, he would have an enlightenment time or an awakening, something. And I've never gotten that would ever happen for him. That no, like
no,
he's going to die the way he was born. Like this is
yeah,
all the
yeah,
same.
and he's another to me an example also of a person who's manifesting the law of unintended consequences in a big way because
Mm,
it is known that he wasn't intending to win the presidency. He had this plan
yes,
to lose close and then torture Hillary Clinton and make
yes,
tons of money, which was
yes,
actually a pretty clever plan. And then he won. And once he won, now he had a bigger problem because at first what these people do when you're a sociopathic narcissist, your first impression will be, well, this is terrible, I wasn't trying to do this. Then you think, well, maybe it means that I should be president, and so then he went into it.
right.
But you don't want to be, when you're a criminal, you don't want to be a president because that's when there's too
No,
much light shine upon
right.
you. And then this is why now all these crimes are exposed. If he had stayed out of it, maybe he would have lived the rest of his life, and not attracted attention. But as it is, oh, and by the way, I mean, there's something else as well. Uh, he came into the presidency to commit more crimes because even as he was
Yes,
leaving, he starts an insurrection. I mean, the man
yes.
can't stop himself. It's like a a crime wave. That's all he does. So that brings about karma, right? Which is where he is now.
Right. And his
Yeah.
karma, I would not want.
No,
Oh my goodness.
no.
Thank you, Daniel. Firefly brought up a great point here. I think he was meant to disrupt everything. Look at what's been exposed, which is what I've said a lot on my channel too. As much as we dislike him and we don't like the things that he's done, he's been so bombastic, so egregious that he has shined a light on things that we can now not turn away from. Like we actually have to start fixing things.
Correct, correct.
You know,
And by the way, something that I brought up a number of times, one of the unintended consequences of Trump is something that society in general is moving toward, and he is, through the way he has been, it's the rise of women. Women are rising
yes,
all throughout the world, and he's going to drive way more women into politics as a reaction to
sure,
his ways. And so in that sense, when people look at history, 50, 100 years from now, they'll say that guy was the beginning of that particular movement. And he actually helped to make it happen because he came in doing the alpha male, I'm strong and I'm
right,
smart. And he basically has really diminished women through his behavior. So he incites women,
absolutely,
to rise. So that's an example of one of the
right,
effects. And the other one is what you say, because he's a little bit like a thief who exposes the vulnerabilities in your house, and then you have to create a system to prevent theft. And he's shown
yep,
that, why isn't there a law that says you got to show your taxes if you want to run for president?
yes,
You got to see your taxes.
right.
He knew that it wasn't a law, so he just said, I'm not going to show them.
Just
So
like we found out that the Supreme Court does not have a code of ethics. Who would have thought that until recently? I mean,
right,
I guess I just lived my whole life thinking, I mean, that's the highest court in the land. Of course, there's a code of ethics. And now we're finding out, oh no, there actually isn't. So
yeah,
something horrible had to happen, and now something will be done about it.
exactly. Yeah. Well, hopefully, but certainly, it's totally true that unless things happen, governments seldom do anything about it. They're always worried
Exactly.
about the next month, the next quarter. So unless it's like this thing now, they passed a little bit of a gun law thing. Why? Because there were some horrible shootings. So then they're forced into action. Otherwise, yeah, there's no
Yeah.
way. So in that sense, I agree with you. Yeah, Trump will be, I
Yeah.
think, will have that effect, which is good. Even though
Which is
in the meantime,
good.
yeah, but in the
It's
meantime, we're all
painful,
suffering.
but right. It's
Yeah.
painful. We're suffering,
Oh,
but thank
totally.
you, Sandy. And, and yeah, talking about guns, um, a lot of my viewers have been asking about the firearm legislation, gun safety reform. I think we're making small strides. Have you ever looked at that? I don't know. Is that something that you can look at astrologically?
Yeah. Well, actually, I hadn't in great depth, but I came across the work of an astrologer. His name is Patrick Watson. He's done some good work on this, and actually, I believe it's years ago already that he did it. So it's not like he suddenly landed upon it now.
Mhm.
But he points out that the cycles of Saturn and Aries over the last 100 years tend to correlate with gun legislation. You can go back and you see them every 30 years. There are these points, and
Okay.
we're about to hit one in 2025. And so this, by the way, to my mind, is a bit of I think it's a positive thing, because I see that as, how do I say this? I see that as the likelihood that there'll be a democratic government in play, because I just don't see the GOP passing any gun laws. So then if Saturn is in Aries during those years, it strikes me as
Mhm.
more likely than not that we're going to have a continuation of democratic rule, which is good for other reasons. But then
Right.
that period would be when significant gun legislation would be passed, which, because the one they've done now is okay. What they've passed, it's okay, but it's not great. I mean, it still leaves way too
Right.
many loopholes.
Exactly.
Well, by the way, they haven't passed it yet. Okay, that's another
Right.
thing.
True. Right.
Right. So,
I believe they actually went on vacation. I think that's what I heard on the news, that they're
uh,
actually taking a little time off right now. They're going away, and but the cards are still optimistic. They're slow moving. Whenever I do this, I get that yes, it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen as fast as we want. And the first card, the Nine of Cups, the smug merchant. And this is why, because there's money to be had. This isn't just about ethics and morals, it's about money. It's about that bottom dollar,
that's a great card, though. I like. That's one
right?
of my
I mean
favorite
that
cards.
that sums it up.
Yeah.
And the obstacle, the Knight of Cups, the false knight coming in with false offers, a mercenary, and I think that's what we've been seeing. There's been a lot of things that I think that have been kind of going on with the NRA that have been less than optimal, let's say, to
Mhm.
put it mildly. Um, but I mean, we just had another shooting today, at the Episcopal Church. We had a shooting in my little town a week ago. And, and when it happens in these little towns, we're not prepared. Like, that's what we quickly found out in my town. Our hospital that we just renovated, the ER, is not equipped for gunshots. We don't
Mhm.
have shootings here. The police didn't quite know what to do. They have not caught this person, and they've had to call out, like, on the state police in other towns. And, so there has to be more training with the hospitals. There has to be more training, I mean, unless we're going to actually do some reform now. But the cards are saying, no, look, Page of Pentacles, there's still money being thrown at this. And that's
Mhm.
the problem. Even though the NRA has lost a lot of its power, it's lost some of its money, some of its members, it still has a lot of power. So does the gun companies and that sort of thing. But here's where it gets hopeful. The Hierophant paired up with the card of working. So there are those who are working in our government to pass it.
Is that the eight? The eight of
Yes. Yeah, this
pentacles?
is the eight. I'm sorry, got it backwards.
Yeah,
The Eight of
yeah, yeah.
Pentacles. Yes. So to
Mhm.
me, it's like the government is working on it. But once again, these are the slowest. I mean, there's no swords, there's no wands, there is nothing fast moving in this.
Mhm.
It's positive that yes, it's going to happen, but my cards have been consistent that it's slow,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah, it makes sense. And let's hope that this cycle coming up, it's in a because it's still 3 years away plus, but let's hope. I mean, from at least from the astrology vantage point, that the cycle repeats. Because I did look at it, and as this person researched, it was correct that you always got some kind of legislation that was significant around that time, right? So let's hope. Because
Right. So yeah, I mean, I say remain optimistic, even though it's frustrating and like we know that things need to change like yesterday. But
mm, I
but
know
let's move on. A lot of my viewers want to know about Beto versus Abbott. So for the governorship of Texas. So have you looked at Beto or Abbott to see what's going on with either one, maybe?
the thing with those two is that I only know their day of birth, but not their time of birth. So
That's right.
it leaves something, a bit of a pretty big unknown. And when I had first looked at it, I couldn't see enough without a time. I couldn't see enough in Betos to really make me super enthusiastic, nor could I
Hmm.
see enough danger to Abbott. But there is, it's possible. There's a possibility, and I'm willing to go along with psychics who say, no, no, we see Beto winning. It's possible. I just wish I had a little more of
Right.
a little more visibility to be able to say this looks really great to me, because I put together my lack of visibility with the fact that Texas is so hostile. They elect people like Ted Cruz and that crazy guy Louis Gohmert, who thinks that we should. He said that his solution for climate change was to alter the orbit of the moon. I mean,
I mean, that makes perfect sense, right?
yeah, just get up there and orbit. See, he actually said that deadpan. And recently he said that he's upset because he said we can't even lie to the FBI to the FBI anymore,
Yes.
or to Congress anymore.
Right.
It's
Right.
remarkable, remarkable. So Texas is hostile, and then there's Ted Cruz, who we all know. So you
Cancun
know,
cruise, right?
and, and
Um,
and Abbott too, because I mean Abbott is just brutal. The way he approaches, by the way, the way he approaches women in general. I mean, the way he treats women as a gender is really pretty sad, as I see it.
right.
Yeah,
And how he treats Texans, I mean, his own constituents,
yeah.
isn't good. So like when I do their cards, I get that they actually both have a pretty decent shot at it.
Mm.
I've never overwhelmingly got one more so than the other. I think this is where I think people need to come out to vote because it's not set in stone. Some things are set in stone. I think there's soul contracts and things like that, and it gets very set in stone. This is where I think people need to actually come out and do something. And when it comes to Beto, people do like him. 3 of Cups, people
Mhm.
do support him and that sort of thing. But there's going to be something coming up too with him where he's not going to like his choices. 4 of Cups.
Mm.
So, and where he's getting all these cups like back to back, I can see there's a lot of emotions here too. So 2 of Cups, trying to partner up with the right people to help him, but he also gets the Sun card. So no matter what, he's going to be fine. Like, is he going to necessarily be the governor? I don't know, but I think he has a really good long career in politics. That I feel quite certain about. Abbott's card, you know, and obviously this isn't realistic for most of us being the temperance card because we would say he's not very temperate. Um, but that can be his own perception of himself. He actually probably does think I'm very balanced and harmonious. Of course I am. Um, a little bit of a delusional mindset. But his obstacle is, the card of balance and well-being, the 4 of Pentacles. So, and also this can be a card of having money issues.
The four,
So
the four of Pentacles. Isn't
yeah,
that also is the Four of Pentacles? Do you see it ever as like a fortress or a like a power zone or something like
it
that?
can because it's a 4. So,
Right.
right, and it's in the obstacle position. So you don't want the 4 of Pentacles in the obstacle position. But
Right.
then, we get into the High Priestess. So he does have secret agendas and hidden motives. But his wishes and dreams also are coming true with the Star card. And this is one of my cards for the US. So, once again, I think both of them are going to be career politicians.
Mhm.
I don't think either one's going anywhere. I think they're both going to have a long career.
I mean,
But
I
I
think
think
with this
people
one,
need to vote.
this one in the just ordinary realm, you got to track the polls, and
Mhm.
Beto has to get within like really tight distance, soon. I mean, at least by the summer, because otherwise, if he goes in there 7, 8 points down, I wouldn't put my money on that. Not in Texas.
Right, right.
So yeah, that's the
But
thing.
sometimes things can happen. Maybe something's going to come out about Abbott that would expose
Mhm.
him. But if that does happen, I do see him bouncing back in the long run. Maybe not as the governor, but it's kind of funny how some of these Republicans really do have like these Teflon suits
Mhm.
where no matter what gets exposed, they can just keep going. It
Yeah,
Things don't stick.
yeah, it's true. It's true. And
It's
the thing
phenomenal.
is, a lot of it is they have the rural vote pretty well locked down, and one of the big unknowns here could be if there's a Supreme Court decision, which is expected to be cast sometime in the next month, and
Hmm.
what that does to women to the gender of women voting, because that could cause a big surge in that particular in any race really, depending
Right.
on what the judgment is. So there's I think we have to wait a little bit uh,
Hmm.
to get visibility a little bit further into the summer, to see where this thing is going to go. And like I said, I
Right.
wish I had a time. If I get times, if anyone ever hears anyone say Beta was born
Um,
whenever, please pass it on and I'll take a look. Because
to
as
get
it
more
is, I don't know.
specific. And
Yeah.
I like that I see a lot of the viewers saying that they've donated to Beto. Those are the little things that we can do. If you can afford to donate, then yes, like we need to actually do tangible things. Like it's good to do the spiritual things, send him good energy and that sort of thing. But we
Mhm.
also need to do things in the real world. Like he needs money. He needs us to go out and vote. If you're a Texan, to go and actually do something like. And I think with these recent elections, we've seen how important it is for people to turn up and vote and how they can really change things when they do.
Yes. True.
Complacency is the worst thing. And so that's why I don't feel like it's set in stone. I think he does have a chance, but I think it depends a lot on what people do.
Yeah.
Because I think, here's the thing, I think Texas is in for a very hard summer, a very hard fall. I think they're going to get hit with really high heat.
Hmm.
I worry about their power grid. I do see hurricanes hitting them. I do see flooding. And so that's not going to make people love Abbott because you know how he's going to handle it. He's not going to handle it well. And that would be in Beto's favor. So
Yeah, I just
I,
looked
I
at Abbott's chart without a time, but there's definitely something there in the pre-election and election period that is risky
mhm.
for him. There's no question. It's not a smooth entry. For one thing, I
Right.
can tell you, I can guarantee you, he's going to be very uncomfortable in the lead up to the election. So, on that alone, it gives me hope that maybe Beto's getting traction and so forth. I just don't know if it's if that factor, which is strong, is enough to take him down, completely.
Right. I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm being cautiously optimistic that Beto can get in because I do think things are going to happen that just haven't unfolded yet. And I think a lot of it's going to have to do with weather.
Hmm.
Um, because I just don't see Texas having a good summer. And, to everyone that's, all my Texan viewers, like we've talked about this, that I've seen that for a while now, that Texas is just going to have a really tough summer. And when I was watching the weather this morning and I saw just how hot it is there, and we know that their grid can't handle it. So that does worry me when it gets that hot and people can't get air conditioning or plug in their oxygen. And
Yeah,
but
although
let's
I'm sure you're aware that in the latest round of they had some electricity spikes, and Cruz and a number of other Texans blamed the Green New Deal, which never passed. And
right.
I mean, it's remarkable to me that you can lie so brazenly and people don't, immediately dismiss you. But these guys, they know that their GOP base is so
Yeah.
coalesced around them that they just say, it's the moon. That's blame it on Pluto. That's why the electricity is.
They live in an alternate reality.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
grounded. It doesn't make sense. And
Mhm.
but I think they, like Trump used to say, he loved the poorly educated. The people that wouldn't fact check, the people that wouldn't look things up, the people
Right.
that wouldn't question him.
Yeah.
And sure, that's what Abbott and I would say DeSantis too. People like that. That's their base. That's who they're going after. And unfortunately, a lot of them just nod their heads and agree and say, "Yeah, of course, it's
Yeah.
the Green New Deal that didn't pass." And
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, so I thought because this is just so wild. Barry Loudermilk, not somebody that I had heard that much about until recently, but he gave a tour the day before the insurrection. And from what I gather, he should not have even been giving this tour. It sounds very strange that he did this to begin with. And he was allowing them to take pictures, and one of them ended up being an insurrectionist. So I was wondering, did you ever do any lookings, astrologically speaking, on Loudermilk?
Yes. So I actually did a video recently on him, and there's no time available, but his
Right.
is one of those charts where even without a time, you immediately see two or three things that pop out. For example, he's on his second Saturn return. You don't want this kind of action on a Saturn return, right? When you start getting linked to something that looks really bad because he was lying about it. He said it didn't happen, then he said it did happen, but it didn't
Right.
happen the way he had said it didn't happen, and surrounding this leading up to an election. And when I checked into his district and his demographics, I don't think it's easy to defeat this guy. I think he's been there since 2015. So he's an incumbent, but he's up every 2 years because he's a House representative, right? So
Mhm,
normally you'd think
mhm.
he won by 20 points last time. So he should win again. But with his chart the way it is, it's possible that they're going to, maybe charge him with something or get him in so much trouble he'll have to quit, such as if he was in some way aiding and abetting an insurrection, for one, right?
Right. And I see that somebody said, well, other people were giving tours that day. Right. But they didn't have an insurrectionist taking pictures. And I think that's what makes the difference. I mean, no, of course, it's, I mean, I know they do tours there, but I think that's what kind of separates. But
Yeah,
also, too, if he felt confident like he should have been doing it, then he would have just said, well, yes, I gave a tour. So what? But
exactly,
he's not,
exactly.
he's ducking, dodging, and so
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little different. And the cards are really telling. The first card I get, the Empress, which is my other card for the US. So, what he's doing is going to impact the country in some sort of way, because look at what his obstacle is, the Justice card. So he's not done.
That's pretty graphic. That's pretty
Right.
graphic.
I mean, you get the US and the Justice card. So he is not done. And the next card is the Queen of Swords, which is like another legal card for me. Oh, thank you for your donation, Firefly. And with that sword, she can slice and dice. And that is the sword of truth. It represents morality and ethics. It should, it's fair and balanced. And it very much is the same sword that the Justice card has. Here he is not getting any support. Seven of Wands, fighting on that hill all by himself, and he's in the dark. He's disillusioned. He's not seeing reality for what it is, and so I don't feel very good about his future. He
Yeah.
manifested it, though. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He's done this to himself.
Oh, totally, totally. I mean, there were a number of, see, this is the thing, a number of these senators who were actually helping this to happen. And I don't think they were, thinking it through to the end that maybe, well, for one thing, I mean, you're on camera. I mean, sometimes I wonder about these people's intelligence because they're sitting there. He has to know that there are cameras
Right?
turned on. So
Everywhere.
how is that a good idea? That's like going to rob a bank and you're on camera. Not a good idea. Don't do that.
No. But trying to deny it, and that's
Yeah.
where I think that's why he got the moon card, the card of disillusionment.
Yeah.
Like he's not even being honest with himself. These people
Yeah.
believe their own lies, which
They
is
do.
a
Yeah.
little bit scary because that means you can kind of be capable of anything if you
I
don't
know. And
have any reality.
yeah. And the thing is, you can see when a person's luck, fortune, karma, something's going wrong because it's one thing that, okay, I lied about it. That's one problem. Next problem, they say, well, look, you see, you were there. Then it turns out that one of the people in the video, they find them walking toward the Capitol saying he's going to kill Pelosi.
Right?
Well, that's not good. That now you're really in trouble.
No.
I mean, it's like you can see someone's bad luck, because that person wouldn't have been caught on camera, whatever. He could have been lucky. He wasn't. And when you start
Right.
noticing these bad luck things popping up, and in my model, when I see dangerous planets surrounding, I start thinking, wait a second, they might get a grip, and then he could get in a lot of trouble. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's one that I would probably put on the very questionable list. Coming up.
Right. And
Well, yeah.
get the Justice card in the obstacle position is never good for anybody, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. That's a direct hit, running into the law. Yeah.
Thank you for your donation, Tina. Much appreciated. The chat is being a little wonky tonight. I don't know why. It's like it's a little bit flickering on me, but and we have 750 people here tonight, so definitely not bad for our Friday evening in June when I know it's nice out, and so thank you everyone for joining us. Let's look at one more topic. Let's see, because there's so many good ones. Oh my goodness. I know a lot of you have asked me about this, and I really haven't talked very much about him. Elon Musk and the Twitter deal. He's going to very soon have to make a decision. Either he's going to buy it or not. I know he's had a lot of issues, and he was even in the conference that he was having with the Twitter employees. He was interestingly going off on tangents about extraterrestrials and things like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Did you have any thoughts about that, Andre, about whether, he's going to have anything to do with Twitter, or is he just going to walk?
There's another one with his chart is, again, no time.
Mm-hmm.
And my sense of Musk, just using my intuition and with the little information that I have, is that he's got planets that incline him to think that he's a communicator, and he's not. He's a really lousy communicator. He constantly makes mistakes,
right,
in the way he expresses himself, but he thinks he's a philosophical communicator. He thinks he knows his way around. I think he's wading into an area that is not his lane. He's stepping outside his lane, and so I would say possibility of things going wrong, especially as we go into next year, which is really probably when it would happen, by the way, because this thing is pretty slow to move. We'll be lucky if it happens. So the way that the planets are shifting in the spring of 23, the Saturn cycle is not favorable. He gets a lot of pressure to his planets. So then he just may have waded into an area where it'll bounce back on him and cause problems. Not to mention, by the way, that there's another issue with him is that he's doing all kinds of things. I talked with someone about it who knows about the legalities, and the person said to
Mm,
me, this guy's going to end up getting sued in all kinds of ways, and he might end up losing piles of money because
right.
remember, he's playing on a really high level. So the suits are for big money and
Yes.
you can get in a lot of trouble. So my sense of him is that he's wading into the wrong territory. It's like he's letting his ego,
Yes.
take control of things. And then as a result, he's going to make mistakes. So I don't know that he's going to be broke or
Yeah.
anything, but
Right. No, but I mean, I think his strength is in creating things, coming up with these ideas, manifesting. But I think
mhm.
he's getting like overly involved with like employees and things like that, which I think is because he doesn't have like I mean, and he's even talked about this. He is on the spectrum.
Mhm.
And I mean, he literally got a divorce from one of his wives because he just I remember watching him in this interview talk about he didn't understand why she couldn't just get over the fact that their baby died. He was like, "Well, we can just have more." I mean, he said that in the interview. I remember watching him, and he's like, "We can have another one, like, and we already have one." So,
It's very,
and
it's
like
very,
he just
it's very
he couldn't
technological,
make
right?
yeah, like
It's
the
like,
emotional intelligence isn't there. Like
I know
he needs
it's
to
like
just
saying,
back off and be a creator, I think.
the solution, just reboot the computer.
Right. Yeah, that's basically, he put up with her for
Uh,
a little bit crying and, but then he was like, "Well, why aren't you done? Why aren't you just better?" Like, and he just didn't get it. Like, why? I mean, because she was devastated. Um,
yeah,
and
well,
he just,
the thing about his chart, without a time, but even without a time, the thing is, he's got, as you might expect, he's got the technology signature Uranus, the planet
mhm,
Uranus. It's really wired. So even if you weren't on the spectrum, this does give you people that are more detached and more techno. So then they disconnect from their feelings, which he does
right,
have. He's a Cancer with Mercury in Cancer. That's a feeling sign, but the Uranus angle is yeah, it's a disconnect. So he just closes it down,
right.
ignores it. Yeah, yeah.
And so
So
if he's going to deal with employees who have legal rights, probably not the best idea. He should really let human resources just do their thing and distance himself. And so his cards are interesting. He gets the Queen of Wands. I'm not surprised. I always call her the ultimate entrepreneur. So I think that's just a card that represents him, that makes sense. And I think as an entrepreneur, sure, why wouldn't he want to acquire Twitter? But look at his obstacle. His obstacle, the Seven of Pentacles, not being able to assess the situation and come up with a good strategy and plan. So it's like,
mm.
yeah, I want it, but I'm not really following through and thinking about how I'm going to do this.
Isn't that a card? Can I ask a question? Isn't that a
Yeah.
card too, where you would associate it with a person that is wondering whether to do one thing or another, like they're
Well,
considering
yes,
two things? Because
absolutely. Because he is pondering all this. And then when you follow it up with, the Two of Pentacles, he's trying to make a decision, right? So even in the outcome position, he's like still trying to weigh and balance things. And he's having a hard time coming up with a judgment. And so
interesting.
he is really struggling with this. I think probably his advisors, his lawyers, whomever it is that gives him advice, is trying to get him to make a decision. But also, I think they're saying, back off. Like, you don't need this. Like, you don't
Mhm.
need this in your life. I think he's doing it because he can, not because he's passionate about Twitter. And I think it's like for the wrong reasons. But I kind of get
Mhm.
the feeling he's not going to acquire it. I think he's probably going to just walk away because it's not in alignment with what he does.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I found it a little strange, and you might be entirely on the right track here with the astrology too, because he started talking like this thing about, I'm going to get Twitter, I'm going to acquire it. And then when Mercury went retrograde, which is the classic backing off, rethinking
Hmm.
type of thing, that's when he started saying, and there were all these news reports saying, oh, I think he's changing his mind. And he started throwing up roadblocks. So it's possible. Yeah. I would think that's a good call that he could easily back off,
Yeah.
mostly because he was, first of all, he'd have to pay less, because if he pays the initial offer, that
Hmm.
that stock has lost a lot of value. That's part of the reason why he
Yes.
doesn't want to buy it now.
Right.
But it's really, a lot of money, so he may rethink it and realize that it's not worth it, in the end, because it's not. I don't think Twitter makes a lot of money either. This is another one of these issues. He's jumped. It's not Facebook at all. It's a totally different thing. So
Right. I don't think it's in his best interest. I think he has money and he can do it. And I think that's the only reason why he cares. I don't think it's his passion. Like unlike say SpaceX, which I think that is like his passion, and Tesla and things like that, which
cars,
he certainly has made some mistakes with, and a lot of them have
definitely.
to do with how he handles human beings, you know.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, because if you're doing if you're too detached, then you're going to miss a lot of the cues. I mean, a lot of I think with human beings is you have to be sensitive to their feelings. If you're not sensitive to their feelings, then they won't feel supported, they won't feel heard. And so if he's doing this number where he can't relate to people's feelings, it's hard. And as far as this chart too,
Yeah.
without a time, but even so, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a lot of planets in an area where there's pressure from 2023 all the way to for about 5 years, one after the
Hmm.
other. So he's going into a period that is more difficult, for
Right. And
so
Azalea here brings up a good point. He wants everyone to have free speech unless they're talking dirt about him. And, because he just fired those employees, I think it was 5 of them, for saying negative things about him in a letter. But with Twitter, he believes everybody should have free speech and they should be able to say whatever they want. But then we just publicly today saw him, fire these people who had something negative to say about him. So it's only free speech when he wants it to be, it seems.
yeah, and
Very
well, of
pick and
course, yeah.
choosy,
Yeah, no, but I mean
right?
the hypocrisy. I mean, this is the problem when you're a hypocrite. Then maybe not right away, but give it enough time, and you'll get a lot of resistance, right? And I
Right.
think I think Twitter and Facebook were entirely correct banning Trump because Trump was
Yeah,
inciting violence. I mean,
he
free
was.
speech. Free speech shouldn't be I can walk into a theater and yell fire and cause everybody to die. That's not free speech. That's
Yes.
dangerous. So yeah, yeah.
Well, I think people confuse freedom of speech with freedom from consequences. Sure, we can say the most crazy things right now here on YouTube. We can. No one's going to stop us. But
Mhm.
there could be consequences.
Precisely. Yeah,
And you have
precisely. Yeah,
to stand up to that. Like you're going to have to face it. And I think
exactly.
people just think, oh, well, it's America. I can say whatever I want. Well, yes, you can. But, then comes the consequences. And, you're going to have to deal with that. And but
Right.
also too, if you have some emotional intelligence, you would know that.
Yeah, well, of course, if you have emotional
And
intelligence,
right.
absolutely. But
That's where we're at with him.
no,
But
no, yeah.
all right, so let's wrap this up. Thank you so much, Andre, for coming on my channel for the first time.
No, it's
I
been a
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Thank
really, I
you.
really enjoy this. It's fun. Yeah.
And thank you, everyone. We have over 800 people on a Friday night in June. I'm impressed. So thank you,
Excellent.
everyone that turned up. Thank you for everyone that donated. And please subscribe to our channels. Andre's channel is called Astrology Alert. So please check his channel out. Hit the subscribe, button on mine. Make sure you hit the like button. And please feel free to leave us some comments too. So, all right, everyone, have a fantastic weekend. Bye.
Thank you.